next is newspaper review. We'll be reviewing big stories on the newspaper, and we'll be starting with the Punch newspaper. And the big story on the Punch newspaper: federal government prioritizes economy, security as ministers take oath today. President's eight President's 8 point agenda to guide appointees, ministers, complete documentation at SGF office. Tinubu renames Environment Minister, appoints Niger Delta Minister, reassigns Oyetola others. You can see these, you can find these on page 2 and 46 of the Punch newspaper. And just by the right, we have farmers abandoned farms 23, Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi local government under bandits. You can find this on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. And just below it, NDLEA recovers 4.8 billion naira drugs from wanted billionaires Lagos warehouse. You can find this on page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. And then we also have miscreants, traders take over multi-million naira Lagos bus stops. You can find this on page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. And just on the top, Nigerian losses 249 billion naira in July as oil output drops. The story can be found on page 25 of the Punch newspaper. CBN loan to manufacturers, aviation firms rise to 5.6 trillion naira. You can find this on page 25 of the Punch newspaper. And then lastly, on the Punch newspaper, Niger, ECOWAS rejects junta's 3 years transition plan. You can find this on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. So, patients, this brings us to the security we were talking about initially when we were introducing the morning cruise. So, you can see on the page newspaper that farmers have abandoned their farms in Sokoto, that's in 23 local government areas, Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi, bandit attack. So, this is, one of our major concerns: security, to be honest. I can understand that Nigerians can cope with, can a bit, I won't really say 100% cope, can a bit cope with increase in food prices. But then you're thinking of hunger, and then you're thinking of how safe will you be when you leave your house to go and find what to eat to start off with. This is really devastating. It is really, really devastating. And I hope that these ministers that have been appointed, both the Minister of Defense and also the Minister of Defense for State, will take the security matter very, very, very serious, because this can threaten our economy as a country. No foreign investors will want to go to a country where security is not 100%, secured. Nobody wants to risk their life over um, money. That's the truth. Money, yes, people want to, have money, but then security comes 1st. So we really hope that these newly appointed ministers for that are Minister for Defense and also Minister of Defense for State will do something about the security in Nigeria.
Okay. All right. Still on newspaper review, we'll be looking at major headlines from the Guardian newspaper. And one of the big stories here is Niger coup and economic sanctions. 7 states in dire straits, economic losses over border closure. You'd find this on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Forex crisis, worry over policy inconsistencies as CBN brings back BDCs. You'd find these also on the Guardian newspaper, page 8. Tinubu reshuffles yet to be constituted cabinet, appoints Momo, Niger Delta Minister. Still on the Guardian newspaper, tackling rapid urbanization and purification of urban slums. And also you find that condemnation trials, rowdy distribution of palliatives in Lagos State. You would find this on page 12 of the Guardian newspaper. Still, group alleges plot to blackmail Atiku on case against Tinubu in US. You would find this on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. Now this all, yes, for the major headlines on the Guardian newspaper. Is all we have.
Okay, so moving on the newspaper review, next is The Nation. And the big story here, Tinubu reassigns Oyetola to Marine, Momo to Niger Delta. And NAMA conducts validation flight ahead ICAO audit. And banks BDCs in talks to boost dollar liquidity. And then on the top, ECOWAS rejects Niger junta's transition plan. They must hand over now and return to the barracks. You can find this on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Labour backs tenure system for public sector directors. You can find this on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. And then also inside agenda for ministers, page 17 and page 19 of the Nation newspaper. And then also we have just by the left, why bank CEOs were barred from foreign trips. Okay, so these are the major headlines on the Nation newspaper.
Okay. We're moving on to Blueprint newspaper. One of the big headlines: Nigerians least expectations from ministers, and citizens want security, agriculture, education, health as top priority. Want Wike to complete Akokashi Road, tax Umahi on federal roads. Momo heads Niger Delta Ministry, Oyetola Marine and Blue Economy. Tell Tinubu not to pamper ministers like Buhari. Malagi must put NOA to right use. You'll find these on page 6 of Blueprint newspaper. Niger copies. We don't want war, but ready. We don't want war, but ready to defend our sovereignty. You'll find these on page 3. High operation costs weigh down on revenue in 6 months. You'll find these on page 21 of Blueprint newspaper. We have excellent relationship with Bago, says Malagi. Ministers designate. Zulum releases 10 million naira to wounded soldiers in Borno. This is on page 25 of Blueprint newspaper. Frauds in Nigerian banks peak at 9.5 billion naira in 7 months. You'll find this on page 21. And you would also $3 billion NNPCL Afrexim Bank's Naira Rescue Deal excites Tinubu, page 21. And still on Blueprint newspaper, 23 councils battling insecurity in Sokoto, Zamfara, and Kebbi states. This is based on a survey. And that's all for the Blueprint newspaper.
Okay, thank you so much, Patient, for those headlines on the Blueprint newspaper. Moving on Daily Trust newspaper, major story: ECOWAS rejects Niger junta 3-year transition plan. You can find this on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Pro-coup protesters warn ECOWAS against military action. Pope calls for peace in Niger Republic. And just by the left, Kano Tribunal stop influencing judges, TNG cautions politicians. Abandoned day-old baby dies in flood. That's so sad. CBN brings back CBN brings back BDCs. I beg your pardon. CBN brings back BDCs, introduces new operational mechanism. You can find these on page 32 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And then also we have Tinubu reassigns portfolios, appoints Niger Delta Minister. Benin, Niger, Togo owe Nigeria 132.2 billion naira energy bills in 4 years. Wow. Okay. And then we have bandit kills 5 men, kidnap women, rustle animals in Katsina. We are still not going to stop talking about security. It's really a major thing. We really hope that the president, in person of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the vice president as well, the appointed minister for defense, and also the newly appointed minister of defense for state will sit up, put their heads together, and see what they can do in tackling the security issues that we have in this country. We cannot continue losing the lives of Nigerians, their properties. You can imagine farmers going to farm for other Nigerians to get food to eat. If this security issue keeps going on, trust me, a time will come in Nigeria where, well,
It is well.
it is well. That's all we can say, and that is all for the Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, still on newspaper review, we'll be moving on to Daily Independence newspaper. So they have two big stories. Inflation pushing lower naira denominations into extinction. And you would also here find that stakeholders view Lerner as aviation minister, set agenda. Then ECOWAS rejects Niger junta's 3-year power transition plan. Pro-coup rally in Niger after leader warns against foreign intervention. You'll find this on page 7 of the Independence newspaper. Serap asks Tinubu to stop Wiki, Umahi, and others from getting pensions. That's interesting. Page 7, still Daily Independence newspaper. Falana asks DSS to release Bawa, says remand order has expired. This is on page 6 of the Independence newspaper. NDLEA recovers 4.8 billion naira off-oil, intercepts 20 million fake notes. I'll take that again. NDLEA recovers 4.8 billion naira off-oil, intercepts $20 million fake notes. And still, lastly, daily petrol consumption drops to 552 million liters in July. NMDPRA. This you'll find on page 6 of the Daily Independence newspaper. And that will be all for newspapers today.
Okay, that is all for the newspaper review. Let's take a look at the commodity market. So, patients, looking at the commodity table, prices are still the way they are, both for foodstuff and also for the petroleum products as well. And then, with this whole speculations of the price of fuel hike, I beg your pardon, the price of fuel will be, up or will be increased soon. It's still there, somewhere there. They are just speculations hanging around. They are just speculations, but then we hope that things get better. We always hope. As Nigerians, every day we wake up, we hope. We are hopeful. And I really hope that collectively, all over the 36 states, our hopes will come together
and be renewed.
And be renewed.
Our hope will be renewed, yes.
Okay. So as we remain hopeful as Nigerians, let's go on a short break. We'll be back shortly.
Agriculture is not in one ministry. So when you have a Minister of Agriculture and you expect to have food security, that's half of the story.
Who is responsible for the accumulated emissions in the atmosphere?
So all you need to do is to develop those kind of strategies. Bring back the strategic reserves so that when you produce rice, you produce millet, you store them in those certain climates.